we here? I'm not asking about the universe or about planet Earth. And I'm definitely not trying to explain Las Vegas. Why are we here today? Now maybe you're here because you have an idea. Maybe you're here because you have a business. Maybe you're here because you're trying to grow your business. Maybe you're here because you know the global mobile app market has expanded 24% this year to reach $51 billion in gross revenue. Maybe you're here because you know that revenue will exceed $100 billion in the next few years. Or maybe you're here because you're looking for this. Got it. Whatever the reason, here's the real question. How do you get ideas from here to there? Now, having an answer has never been more urgent. Will your idea blow up and become the next big thing, or implode and disappear? Now, we know that the only ideas that count are the ones that achieve real business outcomes. And that takes more than just building and provisioning. It means asking the right questions. Should you launch a single product or an entire line? Now, lightning strikes often, but capturing it takes more than speed and agility. It requires a true champion of great ideas with the software expertise to identify opportunity wherever it lives. And that's the mission that drives us every day, to create new software that helps our customers transform their lives and their businesses, which is a pretty big idea in and of itself. Ideas are what we're here to explore. That's what CA World is all about.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Executive Officer Mike Gregoire.
What an amazing moment that was. Are you guys ready to kick off CA World? Yeah. All right. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I hope you brought your biggest challenges, your most innovative ideas, and a desire to engage. I believe at CA, our mission is to make those ambitions and dreams come alive. At CA World, we've created an experience that illuminates a pathway to do just that. It's great to be here to talk about the future of enterprise software, how critical it is to every business. We are clearly in the middle of a massive transformation. Shorter times between game-changing technologies, the critical role software plays in our daily lives and economies, the dramatic transformation of the app economy, energizing every enterprise around the world. Our industry is about to hit the next big wave. New business models, powered by advanced technologies. Today, I'd like to talk about how software has moved from a supporting role to becoming a critical business enabler, where technology is organized to drive revenue and deliver value at scale. The face of digital disruption, new business models are being unleashed. Today, we stand at the center of a global business revolution. But to make it real, we have to overcome rigid cost structures, slow decision-making, the economic effect of disposable technology, and the rapid commoditization of technology, ever-increasing security concerns, as well as the negative effects of global government regulation. All of our businesses have been affected. In the old days, you set your strategy and executed it over years. Competitive advantages was achievable for long periods of time. Your investments were mapped out, goodwill was booked, ROI calculations made could be locked down. Today, time is compressed. The old investment math is failing. The old model, you might take 2 years to develop a product that has a 5-year lifespan. Today, with technology changing so fast, that 5-year lifespan might be only 2 or even less. That means you have to innovate faster with compressed life cycles. And those products, they're built by people.
Finding the right talent is more difficult than it used to be. Those with higher value skills have more options. They're harder to recruit, harder to retain. At the same time, employees find it challenging to find a place that they want to work. What does it mean to be part of a company? They're looking for a stronger sense of purpose and mission. Even more important, tenured experience doesn't count as much as valued experience. That can be very frustrating to your employees. And we see other challenges to your business as well. Your top talent is being recruited away from your competitors. You know, there used to be a code of conduct in software development as a developer. If you were in the middle of a release, you would never quit. Finish the release, then you move on to your next job. Today, people will leave in the middle of a project or in the middle of a release. And it's very difficult to build software when you have an unstable workforce. Take a look at the Scrum teams you have if you're building with Agile. You might have about 10 people in it. If you lose 2 people, that's 20% attrition. There is no way you're going to deliver on your commitments when you have an unstable workforce like that. The productivity hit is too high. The point is, in this environment, everybody matters. At CA, we manage this all day, every day. And now that all of you are becoming a software company, you have to manage this as well. We've learned 3 things in this process. People stay at a company for 3 reasons. Number 1, they like their boss. They like their supervisor. They like the environment that they're working in. And they find the work they're doing is interesting. If that's not happening, your talent is going to walk out the door. And because all of you are now becoming software companies, you get to experience the same advantages and disadvantages that come with that. So welcome to our world. Now, despite all of these challenges, I tell my team every single day, it doesn't suck to be us. There is no place you would rather be than in the software industry. We are at the dawn of the 4th Industrial Revolution, driven by software. This was a concept last year that was driven out at Davos at the World Economic Forum. This is a new world where the fusion of technology is blurring the lines between the physical, the digital, and the biological spheres. This is a whole new world. Last year, as an example, scientists at Brown University achieved an incredible breakthrough with a neural implant. It's a wireless, implantable, rechargeable, long-term brain-computer interface. It allows patients with movement disabilities to control the cursor using only their thoughts. Now, for people that are paralyzed or have Parkinson's, it's a life-changing event. Freedom. Here's another one. The Chang'e Precision Technology Company in China once employed 650 people to build mobile cell phone parts. It went 100% robotic. It now employs 60. And soon, they're going to whittle that down to 20 workers. What about their yields? What about their quality? Both up. In the run-up to the election, we heard an awful lot of talk about calls of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. But when we look at this Chinese factory, we're looking at a very different manufacturing model. A model where engineers and robots are in charge. You know, the truth is, behind the employees at this factory are hundreds of engineers that manage these robots in the environment in which they work. The build-run equation for labor economics is shifting. We don't even know how to measure the output of the overall digital economy, let alone the net effects of labor shifts being driven by digital disruption. But one thing for sure, there's going to be software jobs, top to bottom. Clearly, the opportunities are in software. So welcome to this new reality. It's here, and it's accelerating. 5 years ago, Mark Andreessen famously said, "Software is eating the world." He called it a pivotal point in history, when software began to drive industries and the economy. And it happened more quickly than he or anyone would have thought. At CA, we're fueling a big part of that revolution. And what energizes me, what I want to share with you, is what's coming next. Some real-world examples of people, companies, industries making the turn. Like OpenAI. This is a nonprofit startup that's funded by tech leaders like Thiel, Hoffman, Bezos, and they've pledged $1 billion to this particular startup. This organization is committed to advanced AI research aimed at the future instead of near-term products and quarterly earnings. They plan to share this research with anyone who wants it for free. They are open sourcing the next big gap in technology's capacity to change the world. This allows multiple AI developers to use the platform to increase innovation in this fascinating field. The mission is also to deal with the moral and philosophical issues early on, before this technology becomes pervasive. This is a tool set with big data in the cloud, democratizing AI, so even the smallest players can be productive with bolder algorithms that tackle more complex and ambitious problems. It's going to give all of us even more control of our digital future with personalized experiences. This has the potential to be a revolutionary idea. Now, while OpenAI is focused on very niche developers, large enterprises are also taking advantage of modern digital transformation technologies. We've been talking with Domino's, and we love their story. Over the past few years, Domino's has embedded technology into their business model. Now, 50% of sales come through their online platform. Voice ordering allows customers to follow the pizza from oven to doorsteps. Customers can order food from a smartphone, a smartwatch, a TV, even a smart car. One tweet, one text, one voice command, one emoji, and our food is on its way. And they're even testing autonomous delivery vehicles, like drones. And what does that mean? It means that Domino's is a tech company, not a food company. And it's working. Domino's has posted year-over-year growth in market share since 2010. And they're projected to grow earnings at an average of 16% over the next 5 years. If you bought $1,000 worth of Domino's in 2008, it'd be worth about $50,000 right now. Up 35% in 2016 alone. Pretty good for what was once just a pizza company. But this digital revolution is not just for consumer companies. The industrial internet is taking shape. Here's what Jeff Emmel, the CEO of another great customer of ours, GA, had to say. If you went to bed last night as an industrial company, you're going to wake up in the morning as a software and analytics company. Under Jeff's leadership, GE is aiming to be a digital industrial company, a model of the future. They use predictive maintenance in their own immensely powerful analytical platform called Predix. What Predix does is it connects machines to the cloud and to each other, so applications can optimize uptime while anticipating breakdowns. They expect it will process 1 million terabytes by 2020. 1 million terabytes, by the way. It's a sum total of all the data held by Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook today. Remarkable. My point is this. Throughout the global economy, it's not just the digital darlings, but the longtime leading companies who are reinventing themselves to align with the forces of disruption. Make no mistake, this is happening in every company, in every industry. Our customer, Under Armour, competes with industry giants, from tech companies to shoe and lifestyle brands. To win, they have to run faster, smarter, be more agile. I was with Kevin Plank, their CEO, 2 weeks ago. Super interesting guy. First of all, he refuses to name his competition. But when he thinks of competition, he thinks outside of his industry and focuses on companies like Apple and Samsung. His feeling is the shoe industry has been literally the same for over 100 years. And his vision is that a company like Apple or Samsung has the potential to disrupt him. To his point, the race was on to see who could bring the first 3D printed shoe to market first. In this economy, first to market has huge advantages. Under Armour beat their shoe competition with a new shoe called Architect. What they did is they took design software that connected up to a 3D printer, which adds thousands of layers of nylon powder to print the sole. After each thin layer is printed, a laser heats the powder, which solidifies it. Normal manufacturing equipment can't make a sole like this. Can't get to this level of woven detail. The end result is a lattice sole, which acts like a springboard and a shock absorber. Their first production run sold out in 20 minutes. That's agility in action. Everything is being disrupted, even dishwashers. Bosch, a huge German manufacturing company, has been actively looking at ways to improve their production facilities. Their production on key assembly lines has increased 20% since 2012. And by 2020, Bosch estimates that technologies like connected assembly lines, predictive maintenance, and assembly machines with self-awareness, powered by software, will result in over $1 billion in operational savings and $1 billion in net new sales. Consider financial services, massive disruption here. We are moving to a cashless world with emerging cryptocurrencies. They're convenient and easy to use. Now, while they're not completely mature, there's huge demand for them. Increasingly well-known brands like Dell and Overstock accept them as payment. Insurance is moving to online marketplaces and more personalized products. A startup called Lemonade Insurance is the world's first peer-to-peer company for homeowners and renters insurance. It takes just 90 seconds to get insured and 3 minutes to get a claim paid. Zero paperwork. Lemonade takes a flat fee, pays the claim. If there's any money left over, goes to your favorite charity. Core deposits and lending. You've seen a lot of new platforms there. WeChat, PayPal, Square, Lenki, Avant, many, many others. Capital can now be raised by crowdsourcing. ProFounder for small business owners, and Fundable, which generated over $80 million in funding commitments in its first year. What about loans? Small business loans can now come from companies like OnDeck and Can Capital instead of local banks. Residential real estate lending is being revolutionized by companies like SoFi, Lending Home, Money360, and LendZone. Algorithm-based portfolio management has really leveled the playing field for smaller investors. Automated stock trading software is now used at over 80% of trade markets, including investment banks and big institutions. 10 years ago, if you were at an equity desk at a big investment bank, there's about 100 traders. Today, less than 10. It's all about speed. Human brain processing takes 200 to 300 milliseconds. Automating trading software, 1 millionth of a second. Advantage, software. Now just think about that software for a minute. Who built it? Who's managing it? Who's managing the systems that run it? That's where the game's going to be played. That's the skill set required. That's the future. It used to be that innovation was reserved for the privileged and the funded few. That was certainly true for one of America's most famous inventors, Thomas Edison, the alleged solitary genius of Menlo Park. At least that's the myth. But in today's world, would Edison be able to succeed? We're going to borrow a little inspiration from the hit musical Hamilton to answer that question.
Ladies and gentlemen, CA Technologies is proud to present Edison the Musical.
How does the seventh son Born unto two Canadians, become the first American idol of innovation. The 20th century was his, cause he was shaping it. 1,000 patents, you know that he was making it.
They calling him the Wizard of Menlo Park, man.
Of course, his inventions take us out of the dark and...
Not that we'd question the moves of someone so wise.
But we got some feedback to make changes, to revise.
But he's not listening. No, he's not listening.
Know me, my name is Tesla. You wanna know what's messed up? Your boy Tommy'd steal ideas and well, it was kinda lame. But the world's gonna know your name. What's your name, man? Thomas Alva Edison. My name is Thomas Alva Edison. There's a million things I've invented and just you wait, just you wait.
Nowadays, things are different, opportunity ain't sporadic. It's all about agility, consumer feedback's automatic. But Edison would just say,
I can't hear you. But seriously, I really can't hear you. I'm almost completely deaf.
He also had major dandruff and bad breath.
he had 20 men, collaborators who shaped the story.
My life.
But Edison didn't want to share the credit or the glory.
The phonograph.
Word got around, house by house, brick by brick.
The
That
movie
this
camera.
Edison guy, he was kind of a dick.
God, I'm good.
His ideas were built to last, but now we built to change. A revolution will ferment, now everyone can invent.
I can't be Thomas Alva Edison.
No, you can't. That's
I
preposterous.
can be Thomas Alva Edison.
No, you can't. You're a lady. I can be Thomas Alva Edison. You? No way.
And there's a million things we're about to make. And a million rules we're gonna break. Just you wait, just you wait. A million Thomas Alva Edison.
1 million
Things will never be the same.
And the world's gonna know your name. What's your name, man?
Thomas Alva Edison.
That was kind of fun. Did that ever get the point across? Well, there we go. We just saved you $500 on Hamilton tickets. But you know, that's the world we live in today, where powerful tools are in abundance and information that gave Edison an advantage are available to everyone, which means everyone can come up with the next game-changing idea. Today, you don't need to be an Edison. You need a team of Edisons, collaborating, innovating, building on ideas, continuously improving. You know, it was true then, and it's true today. Disruptions are coming to every industry, along with powerful tools that allow everyone to innovate. As a consequence, we're seeing the emergence of a new kind of company. In the old days, the model was to create a business that was built to last. This concept is out of step with this new digital reality. Let me explain. These built-to-last companies were created deliberately to succeed in a certain kind of world. Predictable, slower, limited in scope. They were organized into discrete silos of activity with clear functions. HR, finance, marketing, engineering, sales, administration. Labor divided specifically by rigid job responsibilities. Investment flows, siloed. Management style, command and control. Six Sigma tolerances with rigid metrics. Strategy completely divorced from operations. All good for a while, but it simply doesn't work anymore. If you want to build a company that's built to last, you'd better build it to change. A company that understands the value of risk-taking. A company that seeks step changes instead of incremental improvements. Broader steps and more of them using fewer resources and lower costs. An agile company, top to bottom. Who would have believed that Tesla could challenge Detroit, not to mention the Japanese and German car makers? Tesla outsells the Mercedes S-Class and the BMW 7 Series combined. And they just bought a solar company. Elon Musk succeeds by doing the unexpected. And what about PayPal,
who revolutionized the way people pay for things. At CA, we were to help them in their agile transformation for product development.
We've been really excited about the PayPal transformation. We'd gotten so great at specializing our workforce that we had 85 bottlenecks within the development process. Over and over again, I heard the same thing. It's really hard to get work done here. When we introduced Agile, we made sure that the goals were aligned between the technology organization and the product organization. And we now have teams that are really fundamentally owning the products that are in the marketplace. They're owning the customer experience. They care about the quality of that product. They care about what that next release is going to look like and how that's going to improve. In the 18 months prior to the transformation, we rolled out 3 new products. In the 6 months following the transformation, we rolled out 58 new products or features. It's been absolutely fantastic to watch the teams get more and more productive as they have been maturing their Agile practices.
What a great story and a great company. One of the things these modern companies have in common is they have a crystal clear understanding of who they are. At the same time, they aggressively renew themselves to add value and avoid commoditization. Think about Facebook buying Instagram, Google's moonshots, Uber poaching Carnegie Mellon's robotics staff, Cisco going into software, Microsoft going into hardware. A built-to-change company is fearless. It understands that current structures and ecosystems are vulnerable to better ideas. It embraces destructive creation. It encourages organizations to do things that are different. They're not afraid to challenge legacy principles. And they don't spend much time thinking about their competitors. Instead, they work to understand markets, to understand underserved white space, and invent ways to serve customers better. Built-to-change companies share a relentless drive to eliminate friction from customer experience. Venmo and other money transfer systems circumvent the banking system and give people a faster, more convenient way to move money. You'll also notice that these modern companies avoid being tied to fixed assets or long capital horizons and depreciation horizons that make balance sheets inflexible. These asset-light companies are able to make more aggressive capital allocation decisions and gain competitive advantage. That's why the cloud and SaaS market models are moving and thriving. Inside these built-to-change companies, management is different too. For one thing, they bet on people. Teams are celebrated, not the individual. The vibe is collaborative and non-hierarchical. Processing is in parallel, not linear. Even traditional performance reviews are a thing of the past. I can remember 20 years ago when I realized that my supervisor had simply copied and pasted my performance review from the previous year into this year. How lame is that? Does that make you feel like you want to give everything you got? Absolutely not. All of these built-to-change companies have a limited traditional performance reviews. Even GE, who made stack ranking popular in the 1980s. Today, their 300,000 employees are assessed by their ability to manage risk and experimentation. The focus isn't on grading how well people are doing, but on a constant improvement measured in a more accurate and fluid way. So okay, fearless risk-taking, being asset-light, focusing on people, all of these are important pathways to becoming a modern, successful company. But a truly agile, built-to-change company doesn't stop there. It puts customers at the center of everything that it does. Said another way, they optimize the customer's journey from product design through the entire product experience. Next, you must practice deep thinking. Companies must break out of rigid rule bases to embrace creativity and reframe problems. Employees must be motivated to embrace the ethos of try and learn, a strong bias for action. And the toughest hurdle of all, speed. Modern companies innovate and execute at high velocity. And finally, these companies continuously drive improvement. Now, everything is in evolution all the time. Today, the very notion of competitive advantage is being challenged. Forbes says that businesses need to break away from traditional assumptions of sustainable competitive advantage, like building and defending wide moats, and embrace adaptable differentiation.
In other words, they need to develop an agility advantage. So what is business agility? Various elements of business agility have been around for years. We've all evolved from the long legs between feedback and implementation, from implementation to Kaizen, the Japanese concept for continuous improvement. From the old waterfall development processes to new lean canvases, a brilliant concept by Eric Ries, who invented the discipline of entrepreneurial management. We've moved away from one-to-many mass marketing to one-to-one marketing as articulated by Seth Godin. The emphasis today is on customer centricity, two-way engagement, and responsiveness. And instead of following top-down plan, the Agile Manifesto champions collaboration, spontaneity, creativity, holistic business agility. What's truly different is that until now, we didn't have the tools and the processes and the real-time insights to execute on these concepts. Only recently have we had the computing power and the collaboration software to make this happen. So we are now cracking the code on business agility. In a word, software. It's the catalyst, the engine, the enabler for both business agility and execution velocity. Today, the calculus of the modern company has been redefined by enterprise software. The speed at which a company can perceive and respond to change is limited by only one thing, the ability of software to allow it to sense and react. And that's a big idea. But if you really think about it, it's a lot more than that. It's not just the software, but how you build and deliver superior customer experiences. How you integrate those new experiences, which is dynamic and continuous, and is very core to how your business operates. Instead of supporting static line of business applications, you're expected to deliver live, fully integrated, always-on software services. Yearly releases and those cycles are artifacts of history. Continuous delivery and improvement are table stakes. All this requires a new mindset and agility across your business in how you use technology and how you build software. It makes everyone in this room an agent for change. Technology used to be focused internally within the enterprise. Now it serves as the primary interface between your business and your customers. They could be consumers experiencing your company through apps. They could be industrial customers exchanging huge amounts of data. In either case, digital engagement and customer interaction with your business at any time, any place, on any device has become a basic expectation. More than ever, customer experience drives brand success. Simple fact, regardless of your industry sector, your end product, every company's brand will be represented, communicated, and judged through technology. That means that software is now the core component of a business's DNA. It's the essential customer-facing engine for sensing and responding to new needs, threats, and opportunities. And you know what? That's great news for all of us here. As a technology leader, you are now at the center of your company's future. You are no longer focused on optimizing business functions within the company. You're now a key thought leader and driver of continuous strategic differentiation. Your job, and ours, is to intimately understand the intersection of business and technology, and then break down the barriers between ideas and outcomes. Now, of course, in your new role in the enterprise, it's bundled with additional responsibilities. You're increasingly going to be called upon to help your company evaluate and source and implement emerging technologies like containers, microservices, and data analytics. As your company's applications increasingly define your brand, your work to deliver software that creates competitive advantage and powers new experiences becomes the main output of your business. If any of you were following the US election on CNN, you saw firsthand how CNN used software, our software, to change the election experience. The goal? Power the electorate with data and analytics to participate in an election like none of us have seen before. Let's hear their story.
For us, one of the most important parts of being a modern broadcaster is a more personal CNN. We
we have to continually reimagine how we connect with our audience. And the story of data, telling that story of data, has always eluded us. And so our goal in this election was to take all of this data and to distill it down in ways that were accessible to the audience. And so ultimately, technology is the way to unlock it, right? Design, editorial, they have a vision. It's brought together around a product, but it's the technology that enables it. In some cases, it's just code on the back end. It's a content management system. It's a CA live API creator. It's a combination of different pieces of technology. It's a puzzle, right? It's a puzzle. The group that came together from CNN, from CA Technologies, really understood the task at hand, and that was, how do we extract insights from data in a way that's accessible for the audience? And then ultimately, how do we personalize that experience? And we leaned heavily on our technologists and CA technology to solve these problems. And as a result, we've seen engagement, page views, all of our metrics really double and triple. And that reach of that audience with that storytelling, that's what makes us us.
What a great example of really changing your perspective of how you use technology to reach out to customers in unique ways. CNN CEO Jeff Zucker and his team calls this democracy powered by data. Another strong demonstration that all industries are becoming software companies. Today, keeping up to date and relevant is more important than ever. Digital-first engagement is never-ending and fast-paced. Customers expect a steady stream of new features and functionality in response to their changing needs, and they want new technology. They expect their online engagement to be individualized, secure, friction-free, and highly reliable. You know, before 2007, we did everything on a keyboard. And then we discovered the power of touch, and the bar got reset. And then the world saw a major pivot. Hey Siri.
Yes, Mike.
How am I doing up here today?
Mike, do you want the answer that we practiced?
Just answer the question, Siri.
I think you should just move it along, Mike.
Wow. The user interface of the future is going to be our voice. How intuitive, how easy. What an attitude. I have to give Tim Cook a call about that. So for those of us in the thick of the software revolution, we know what we have to do. We have to rethink our cultures, processes, tools, methodologies. We have to reprioritize and re-architect our approach to software development to achieve the shortest and fastest path to results that matter. We must optimize responsiveness to capitalize on new opportunities. We must rebalance our tools, processes, and investments to drive out inefficiencies and unproductive effort, and make room for innovation, fostering new ideas, delivering unique value to all of our customers. Here's the tricky part: finding the right balance between evolving existing technologies and driving that new innovation. The path to becoming a fourth industrial revolution company, a modern company, is not an easy one. There are no shortcuts. It takes the long view, an unrelenting focus on outcomes that matter to customers. And certainly, it's no longer just an IT thing. It requires deep cultural, organizational, and technological transformation at all levels of the enterprise, as well as a company-wide focus and commitment to continuous improvement, constantly measuring, analyzing, adapting, and delivering new customer value. Tomorrow, you're going to hear much more from Otto Burkus, our Chief Technology Officer, and Ayman Sayad, our Chief Product Officer, of what it takes to get there, including how to build what we call a modern software factory. Of course, as a software company, we get to eat our own cooking along the way. I've seen the cultural and organizational benefits found in Agile and DevOps. I've seen what happens when we include our customers in our scrums, partner with them to solve their most complex problems, and use Net Promoter Score and customer satisfaction analytics. I've witnessed the real power of innovation. We've invested heavily in new approaches, and we retooled our software factory to deliver innovations that matter. Tomorrow we're going to show you one of those latest innovations from our incubation lab called Waffle.io, which makes GitHub issues easier to work with.
Waffle founder Andrew Holmeyer will be here on stage as well to tell you about it. It's a very compelling story. We've aligned our own portfolio to that of a modern software factory requirements. CA is organized around 4 pillars, cutting across heterogeneous environments: Agile, DevOps, security, mainframe. Don't think of them as products. Instead, think of them as core capabilities that you will need to move your organization into the future. We accelerate the path from ideas to outcomes through these elements of the software lifecycle: plan, build, deploy, operate, and secure, from mobile to mainframe. Over the next few days, we look forward to sharing our insights and exchanging ideas and learning more about each other. With the right mindset, the right team, the right tools and partners, I'm confident you can meet the challenge of this transformation. You know, a hallmark of human evolution is the ability to evolve and adapt to changes in the environment. And more importantly, to change that environment to meet our needs. We are built to change. We can use our natural flexibility, adaptability, innovative capacity to take the biggest leaps yet. To leave the confines of our home planet and venture into the universe beyond. To help us think more boldly in just a few moments, I'm going to be joined up here on stage with astronaut captain Scott Kelly, aerospace legend Burt Rutan, and Natalie Panek, a rocket scientist and advocate for women in tech. It's going to be a fascinating discussion. But before we reach for the stars, a few final down-to-earth thoughts. At CA, we're in the same path as you, harnessing technology investments to produce the best results. We are entering the next era where software becomes more important than ever. With new opportunities for you and the businesses you imagine, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Head of Editorial Back Channel, Wired Media Group, Jesse Hempel.
Good morning. So we're going to take things up a level, way up, to the future of space exploration. So we have a panel of experts who are right at the cutting edge. Now, the space industry has changed a great deal in recent years. It's now a robust ecosystem composed of government institutions and major corporations, along with innovative startups led by entrepreneurs with a long-term vision. We're going to talk about that and much more. Now, our panel this morning includes Mike Gregoire, along with our special guests. We're going to hear from Burt Rutan, aerospace engineer, entrepreneur, and designer who designed Spaceship One, the world's first privately built manned spacecraft to reach space. We'll hear from Natalie Panek, a rocket scientist, explorer, and an advocate for women in tech. Now, Natalie works on the next generation of Canadian robotic hardware development and space studies for lunar missions. And we will hear from astronaut Captain Scott Kelly, a veteran of 4 space flights. Scott returned earlier this year, just 8 months ago, from his historic, record-breaking full year in space aboard the International Space Station. Guys, that's 5,000 orbits. He laid the foundation for the future of space travel. Please now welcome Burt, Natalie, Scott, and Mike. On how companies must re-envision their corporate culture to pursue breakthroughs in business. And you know, he used this phrase I love, built to change. Nimble, fast-moving, imaginative. And you know, that's the very heart and spirit of the space industry. Now you all are paving the way for us to get to Mars. That's a huge vision. So I want to start with a really basic question to our retired astronaut and to our aspiring astronaut, Scott and Natalie. Why go to space?
So I think humans are born to explore, to venture into uncharted territories in search of the unknown. But I think as we look out into space to answer those big questions, more importantly, it teaches us about ourselves and what we can learn to affect positive change here on Earth.
And I think, when we do something that's really, really hard, the hardest things, like, going to Mars will be, whenever we do that, we develop technologies that help us improve our lives right here on Earth. And I think the Apollo program is a prime example of that. And the computing technology and telecommunication systems we have today are, were likely advanced from the Apollo program. So there is, in addition to the exploration aspect that Natalie mentioned, I think there's also a return of that investment right here on planet Earth.
So Scott, you've only been back with us on planet Earth for 8 months. What's it like to readjust to gravity?
Gravity sucks, actually. When you've been in space for a really long time. I actually have an easier time adjusting to living in space than coming back to Earth. When I got back from this last mission, I don't know, some of you might have seen me coming out of the capsule and I had maybe a picture, a big smile on my face. I was moving my head around. I wasn't really trying to, I was faking it. I wasn't trying to look good. I was just trying to look better than the 2 guys I was with. But I was really sore for the first, month or so. First few days, it was hard to get out of bed. When I would stand up, I could feel blood just rushing to my legs. I could see my legs swelling up. I had the hives everywhere my skin touched because I hadn't touched anything for a year. But there's some advantages to being in space for a year. You lose all the calluses on your feet. You're out walking around. And my previous long duration mission, right after I got back, I went to the one of these massage places to get a massage. And the lady's like, "You have the softest feet I have ever felt." And my response was I was like, "Thank you. I'm very proud of them." There are advantages to coming back.
Tell us about the year that you spent in space. What was that like?
Well, it was hard. Spending a year anywhere where you can't leave, you can't, go outside. You have limited human contact. You have limited choice. When you go to sleep, you're at work. When you wake up, you're at work. It was really hard, but that's what made it so great. It was, for me, the hardest thing I ever have done, and because it was such a challenge, it made it so much more rewarding.
Now, what kinds of studies were you working on while you were there?
So we have on the space station over the course of the year I was there were 400 different experiments. And they're in all different kinds of categories. Some of these experiments, I wouldn't even know what they are. There might be some science on the outside of this payload on the outside of the space station that the crew had absolutely no involvement with it. Others are like, the reason why Misha and I were there for a year, to better understand our physiology, the effects of long-term life in microgravity, so we can someday go to Mars. There's effects on our bones, our muscles, our vision is a major issue. And so we did a lot of science experiments in that area on us. I would say the science on the space station is in 3 broad categories. A third of it is exploration-based, how to, get from low Earth orbit and explore Mars someday. The other focus is on Earth, understanding, processes and some pharmaceutical studies we've done, studies with combustion to improve life on Earth. And the other third of it is kind of a hodgepodge of things, and that's the international aspect of our international partner science program.
So some people in our audience may know this, but Scott is an identical twin. So I have 2 questions for you. First, I want to know what you and your brother were doing in your youth that led you both to become, not just Scott, but his brother too, astronauts.
We were beating the crap out of one another.
So what you're saying is that's to be encouraged if you see your children.
Yeah. So we were either beating each other up, and or we were best friends. Neither of us were particularly good students, surprisingly. You know, he got his act together much sooner than I did.
Where'd you grow up?
In New Jersey, right outside of New York City. Our parents were police officers. But if I was in school today, I would be, you know, the ADHD diagnosed kid, and I could not pay attention at all. And it wasn't until I was in college that I, you know, picked up a book, probably one of the first books I had ever read in my life, and it was The Right Stuff. It motivated me enough to change my life, and change my direction, focus and study, and you know, do something.
And how did you and your brother both end up pursuing similar career paths?
We were both wound up as test pilots in the Navy, and you know, at that point in your career, most test pilots, you know, during that era of the space shuttle, apply to the astronauts. And I almost didn't even apply. The guy in my cube that I was sharing, he was working on his application. It was this thick, and I asked him what he was doing. He said he was applying to be an astronaut, and I figured, you know, I didn't have I had the flight test background, but I didn't feel like I had the academic background to do it. And then a master's degree, wasn't, like I said, wasn't a particularly good student, but I applied thinking, well, I'll just, you know, get rejected, but it doesn't cost me anything, so I filled out a 2-page application and was lucky enough to get an interview.
Now, before I move on to the rest of you, and we will get to the rest of you, I promise, I want you to tell us a little bit about the twin study that happened this past year.
You know, a lot of people think that I was picked for this mission because I had an identical twin brother that NASA also had a lot of data on. He was an astronaut, but that was really not the case. NASA had never even discussed doing any kind of studies between my brother and I for the first 15 years that we were together at NASA. And once I got assigned to this mission, I asked the question of some scientists that were filling me in on the science program, and I said, if the press asks, is there any kind of comparative, like, genetic studies between my brother and I, how should I answer that question? And this guy said, well, we're not planning on anything like that, but if there was, would you be interested? Because it's apparently against the law for the U.S. government to ask their employees to participate in genetic-based research. So I kind of opened the door for this as a science opportunity by me asking the question, and then I went back, talked to a bunch of researchers around the country, and found out that there was in fact some interest.
So what came of it?
Well, you know, the way science works is you have a hypothesis, and you develop an experiment, you collect the data, and you analyze the data, and you write the reports, and you have it peer reviewed and published. So we're in this process. So I don't really have any specific, results for you. Some of these studies, most of the studies are genetic. So there's these, things called their telomeres that that show what our physical age is, not our age based on when we were born. And the longer they are, like hers are probably much younger, or much longer. Her telomeres, Natalie's telomeres, are probably like 10 times as long as Burt's are.
Yeah, you're making an assumption
Maybe.
right there, Scott.
Yeah, I'm assuming, you never know. But the assumption here is that because I spent so much time, so much more radiation, so much time in this harsh environment in space, my telomeres are much shorter than my brother's now. And this is something we're going to learn about. So, the suspicion is when, we get to be, in our 60s, I might look like I'm, 70 and he looks like he's 50. It was because I spent so much time in space. Actually, I think it's probably because my brother has gotten Botox.
So what you're saying is that adults, you still beat the crap out of each other, you just use words now instead of your fists?
Every chance we get.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to space, but Natalie, now, you're a rocket scientist, and that really, your career began when you had this internship at NASA, but that was not an easy internship for you to get. So I want you to begin by telling us how you got into this mess.
Sure. So I'm actually from Western Canada, from a city called Calgary, where the main industry is oil and gas. So it's not common for people to want to pursue a passion for space and aerospace engineering. And I was constantly looking for opportunities online to get a placement or some sort of work experience. And I came across something called a Space Exploration Scholarship offered through the Canadian Space Agency, which was an opportunity for one Canadian student to intern at NASA for the summer. And I applied not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times for this internship, and was actually rejected all 4 times that I applied. And I went through phases of, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough, I'm never gonna make it in the aerospace industry, to maybe they'll just feel sorry for me and pick me for this internship because I've applied so many times now. And then after that 4th rejection, I had the idea just to pick up the phone and try and talk to someone. So I called the chief of the Office of Higher Education at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, just to get feedback on what I could be doing, what types of other experience I needed, and within a 2-minute phone conversation, I had an internship position offered to me on the spot. And for me, it's such a great lesson in perseverance and having to overcome obstacles. I think regardless of what industry you're in, things are not going to go according to plan. Things are going to need to change, and you need to learn how to improvise and make decisions when you do overcome or face those challenges and barriers. And I think taking that initial leap has the power to create meaningful change, even when we stumble and fail along the way.
So I totally hear you, Natalie, and I want to know what was going on in the precocious teenager who kept getting rejected. What did you know about the process, and why did you keep applying?
I didn't know much about the process. At first, I was like the first or second time that I applied, I realized that the odds were so small, they were only choosing one Canadian. I knew there was a lot of other qualified candidates, but once it got into the 3rd and 4th times, I was angry, I was frustrated. I didn't know why I couldn't make this materialize. And then I just didn't want to give up. I wanted to know that I did everything I possibly could to get myself there. And for me, that was a phone call.
So tell us about your day job today.
So now I work in space robotics. I work for the company that built the Canadarm that flew on Space Shuttle, and Canadarm2 that's now on Space Station. And I've been really lucky to have a number of cool opportunities, like working on robotics to service and repair broken down satellites, to working on lunar dust mitigation studies, so trying to see how we could protect motors and sensors and other hardware for a lunar mission from hazardous lunar dust. And then to now working on the European Space Agency's ExoMars rover, where we're building the chassis and locomotion system. So that's basically the base structure with the wheels and the actuators that allows it to roll and move around.
So if I met you as a 12-year-old, Natalie, and I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Would you have said this?
I probably, would have said Space Explorer. I grew up watching lots of sci-fi, like Stargate SG-1, seeing really cool characters exploring other worlds, traveling through stargates, and for me that seemed like the ultimate adventure.
And you are an adventurer. In fact, didn't you create some sort of a solar-powered car that you drove across the country?
Yeah, when I was in my undergraduate degree studying engineering, we had this really interesting and cool opportunity to build a solar-powered car that we raced from Austin, Texas, north to Winnipeg, and then west to Calgary. And it was really a classroom outside the city limits, an opportunity to build, experiment, tinker, and fail on an everyday basis. And then what matters is what you make of those moments right after failure.
And when you got to Canada, you ran out of sun, so you didn't really
Actually, what was really awesome was crossing the border between 2 countries in an experimental test vehicle.
Natalie, as I listen to you talk, I keep hearing you refer to we, collaborative team building the car, we, the team that you're working on in your day job. I mean, what role does team building play in the kind of work that you do?
Everything that we work on, I assume with these other gentlemen, is team-based projects. It requires collaboration. It requires multidisciplinary backgrounds coming together. A lot of times people think that in the aerospace industry it's only technical and engineering expertise that's working on a project, but oftentimes it's business and marketing and fine arts all coming together to tell a bigger picture and a bigger story.
And so, when we first were exchanging messages, you said clearly you know what you want to be. You know that you want to be an astronaut. How does one become an astronaut?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Scott might be the better expert. I think you go down a path and try and have experiences that add to your tool belt of skills, whether it's pursuing an engineering degree or a science degree, learning how to fly, doing the solar car, those types of experiences.
Okay, but let's talk specifics. Okay, so you live in Canada.
Yep.
How does it work? I mean, who are the astronauts in Canada? How are they selected? What can you do to make sure that you're considered?
So they're selected through the Canadian Space Agency. The Canadian Space Agency will announce recruitment campaigns every so often. Their latest recruitment campaign was just this past August. We have 2 active astronauts working for our country right now, and then they'll look to pick 2 more astronauts by next August. So
and you put your name in, right?
I did put my name in, yeah.
And so you were one of, what, 10 people who put your name in?
3,700.
Okay, all right. So what are the qualities that they're looking for? And maybe Scott, you also probably could speak to this too. I mean, what are they looking for?
Well, I was on the last astronaut selection board for the class. We picked a number.
Do you have any sway in Canada? Because I know someone who's really looking for it.
Maybe I'll make some phone calls. But you know, it's a little different than during the space shuttle era, or you know, the guys that came before us, and you know, who I have a lot of respect for, that were the pure test pilot types. You know, being an astronaut on the space station now, on a vehicle that's been in orbit with crew members for 16 years. I mean, if something goes wrong, you're not calling a repairman. So when you're on the space station, you know, you're the plumber, the electrician, the IT person, you're the scientist, you're the doctor, you're the dentist, you know, I've actually replaced some of my crew members' teeth before in space. So,
did you practice on land beforehand, or did you just wing it?
you know, there's so much to do that the training is now more skills-based than, you know, specifically, you know, how to perform a certain experiment, because the training's years long. In my case, I was up there for a year, so they try to teach you all these generic skills. So, you know, when you show up in the interview, it's important that you have someone that has a technical background. I mean, that's a minimum requirement in some kind of STEM field, science, engineering, math, physics, something like that. But then also somebody that shows that they have the ability to do other things, other skills, other interests, and also, you know, that it's somebody that you would want to live in space with for a really long time. So, you know, there's a personality aspect to it as well. But, you know, I encourage folks, you know, pick something you like, because you're going to do better at it. It needs to be in a qualifying field, and then show you have, you know, a lot of other skills that might be applicable to living in space for a really long time.
Yeah. So Burt, in 2004, you built Spaceship One, which was the world's first privately manned spacecraft to reach space. It was one of the first things that I ever covered as a tech journalist back then. You won the Ansari X Prize. So when and how did that project begin?
Well, my first job out of college, 51 years ago, was working as a flight
Just take a
tester.
moment with that, people.
Yeah, 1965. I'm 73. My first job was flight testing airplanes for the Air Force during the Vietnam War. Also going on during that time was a research program called the X-15, which was launched from a B-52 and that made 2 space flights above 100 kilometers. A good friend of mine lost his life on re-entry on one of those flights. And I was always a space geek. The Alan Shepard flight happened while I was senior in high school. And the next little Mercury suborbital flight happened while I was driving to college to see it for the first time. I knew somehow that I would be able to fly in space at some point. I just had that feeling.
In 1965?
Yeah, oh yeah, before that. You know, when Gagarin flew in 61, and Alan Shepard. By the way, things really happened quickly then. I watched Alan Shepard, our first astronaut, fly when I was a senior in high school. 10 years later, he was hitting golf balls on the moon.
These were amazing moments.
10 years later,
Amazing moments.
he was hitting golf balls on the moon. People don't realize what happened in the
So Burt,
anyway, the reason that I started as an entrepreneur though in 1972, and during my 40-some years doing that, we had a new first flight of a new type of airplane every year. So I was the most active developer of research airplanes. When I stumbled into something that I thought was I think is a solution to what killed Mike Adams in the X-15. And when I
What
figured
time
that
period
out,
are we?
oh, we're talking 96.
96.
Okay. Actually, 97, 98 when I came up with this. But anyway, I become friends with Paul Allen, working on airplanes that would provide broadband on demand to large cities. That was before we had fiber in the ground, and so you would paint a little dish at an airplane overhead.
Right.
But when I sorted out that there's a solution, which was the biggest safety problem, I thought, to allow the public to fly to space, I got with Paul again and I said, listen, I would put my own money in this. Unlike a lot of these guys that go out and beg for money for their pet space programs, they wouldn't put their own money in it. They spend all the time asking for it. I told Paul I would put my own money in it, and he immediately put out his hand and he said, let's do it. And that was the total of my begging for money for Spaceship One program.
You know, most people work a little harder to fundraise for their
I know they do, and I work with people that do fundraising all the time, but that was the only begging that I had to do.
So, you know, you were an entrepreneur in a space where that was a moment when we were really just introducing the role of entrepreneurs into the
I've been an entrepreneur since 1972.
So how have the challenges of being an entrepreneur in the space industry changed between the late 90s and the time when you retired, which was...
Well, first of all, after about 1972, 73,
right.
NASA, which did such wonderful work, I mean, go to the moon that quickly and doing a space station, you know, the Skylab and so on, in
right.
real short periods of time. After that period of time, NASA got real risk averse, and they didn't do real research. I believe that in order to say you're doing research, you must have a goal that half of the people at least think it's impossible.
So Burt,
if it's not half of the people that think it's impossible, you are doing development, you're not doing research. I really feel that strongly. NASA's came in, they became nothing but a developer, they wouldn't take risks, and that's the reason we were doing research to go to the moon, and we've been doing development since. The guys who are really out there doing it now, of course, are Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and you know, Richard Branson, and
so I want you to take us to 2002, 2003, in the run-up to the win of the X-Prize. Tell me what was going on for you. Tell me about building Spaceship One.
I got money from Paul Allen in 2001, and we decided that we would start our little company, who had done a lot of airplanes, but nothing supersonic.
Yeah.
We would start in building an airplane that would go Mach 3.5, 3.5 times the speed of the sound, as fast as an SR-71, but we do it going straight up. Okay, wow, pretty big, right? And we also decided we weren't going to let anybody know we were doing it. A lot of people don't realize, but my space program, where we developed a launch airplane, a spaceship, a simulator, the avionics, the rocket motor itself, all the tests and so on, a rocket test site on the ground. We developed all that stuff. The whole program took 3.5 years. And we did 3 space flights. The whole program took 3. The first 2 years, no one outside my company knew we were doing it.
Wow. So
I went to the FAA, not to NASA, because they were the ones, because I was commercial, it wasn't NASA, they were the ones that would have to license me to fly a new kind of unusual research airplane.
Right.
I went to Washington and I talked to the FAA Associate Administrator for Space 6 days before we unveiled our spaceship in April of 2003.
And what was the unveil like?
It was absolutely fun. Keep in mind, the world didn't know I was doing a spaceship. And I had to give them a little bit of hints so they'd showed up. But I really didn't tell them what we were doing. We had a curtain behind it, and we raised the curtain. Now, usually when you raise the curtain and you say you're going to do a program, you raise the curtain on a wooden mock-up.
Right.
Here's a spaceship. And the crew chief was sitting in it. And I said, "How you doing, Steve?" And he bounced like this, so it would kind of bounce on its nose skid. And I says, "Well, how are you going to do re-entry?" And then it went into the feathered mode, pneumatic.
Right.
And I says, "Well, how do you control this thing outside the atmosphere?" And he fired the reaction control thrusters, and everything was right there. And people didn't know we were doing a space program, and we had a spaceship, suborbital, a lot harder, a lot easier to do than a space shuttle.
Yes.
But we had a spaceship ready to fly when the world found out about it.
Yes.
A few months later, or actually 6 or 7 months later, it was the 100th anniversary of the Wright brothers' flight. 2003, December 17th, I think it was. Okay. Now the world was focused on Kitty Hawk, where they had a failure. They didn't fly that replica. Well, in Mojave, I was doing something that I was very proud of. I was the only non-aerospace prime to build and fly a supersonic airplane. We fired the rocket motor for 15 seconds. There was only 2 people. Paul Allen allowed 1 press and 1 broadcast to cover it. Okay. We were taking big risks that day. You don't want to do something real bad.
The bad pressing.
But anyway, 10 seconds after we fired the rocket motor, we were heading like this. We're Mach 1.2, and that to me was a thrilling. First of all, it was the most dangerous flight in my whole program. We went to a higher dynamic pressure than we would on a space flight because we were a lot lighter. There's no throttle on the rocket. So, and we don't know. We didn't do wind tunnel tests transonically. So, NASA would never do that, of course. But we did with just a little bit of analysis.
Right.
We did something crazy with just a little bit of money. And I had so much fun that day. It was really cool.
And that speaks to the way that the broadening of the industry broadens as entrepreneurs join government actors. Suddenly you have a much more eclectic playing field. And I want to talk about that quite a bit, but I just want to go back to something you said. You were talking about just the speed. And it reminded me of the story that Scott told about what it felt like to come back to Earth after being away for a year. I could tell the audience, Scott, I'd much rather you. How did you describe it?
Well, what Burt and their company did was amazing, and I was a big fan and watched that live on television. Very excited about it. To get into low Earth orbit, you got to get going faster. 17,500 miles an hour, which takes a lot more energy. The space shuttle uses 7 million pounds of thrust to get that 5 million pound vehicle into space. And what's interesting, a lot of people don't realize, is once you get into space, you only have to slow down your speed by a few hundred miles an hour, and then the atmosphere does the rest. It dissipates the other 17,000 miles an hour in the form of heat and friction with the atmosphere. And in the Soyuz, that I've flown on twice. It's much different than coming back in the space shuttle. The space shuttle's more like driving a Bentley down Park Avenue. Kind of very stately, kind of thing, even though it's pretty risky. The Soyuz, these three pieces of the Soyuz are squeezed in there. It's about as small as it possibly can be, and you can fit 3 people inside. And you burn your engine and slow down by a couple hundred miles an hour, and you start hitting the atmosphere. And as soon as you do that, the 3 modules are exploded apart. You see all these pieces flying around outside the window, hitting the side of the thing. And as you hit the atmosphere, all the ablated material, the heat shield is coming off and flying by the window, and the window's right here. And it's like looking straight into the sun. It gets hot inside, and it's kind of like if you were going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, but while you're on fire. And as soon as you realize you're not going to die, it's the most fun you've ever had in your life. It's medieval, but very effective.
I would imagine that after that, roller coasters are just not that interesting.
I don't like roller coasters, period. I know it's surprising, but it just beats I have this fighter pilot neck, a really bad neck from pulling all these G's all these years, and I will not go on a roller coaster because it just beats your head around so much.
Fair enough. So Mike, I want to bring you into this conversation. When we're thinking about innovation, we always have to balance what's possible with what we want to do and how far into the future we're willing to look and to reach with our ideas. And as a leader of a software company, that's very familiar territory to you.
I'd say when I'm talking to CEOs, that's the number one issue they have. Most leaders, and I'm sure almost all of you, know what you want to do, and you probably have a pretty good idea on how to get there, but you live in a constrained environment. It could be budget, it could be talent, it could be your industry. But you got to keep everything running with the systems that you have today, because it takes so long to reinvent them. And then nobody likes the idea of paying for the same thing twice, which makes it really, really difficult. So you have your operational systems that are running today, and they're keeping your customers happy or keeping your company afloat, and you know where you want to get to. But how do you get the talent and the budget to go build that net new thing when you're just so constrained on just running your business? And that's where I try to encourage CEOs to think differently. There's multiple ways of getting there. I'm not a huge fan of incremental. I think you spend a lot of calories on incremental when you have an opportunity for step functions. But I think if you think through how you're engineering your older systems or your legacy systems, and then find new technologies to build a bridge. One of the technologies that I think a lot of folks use, and a lot of folks here use, is APIs. Federal government has a similar issue. They've got some very old, antiquated databases. Millions and millions of all of our records, for those of us that are US citizens, stored in those databases. They know they want to get to the cloud. They know that they can't do that overnight. So what they've done, and you see a lot of banks and insurance companies doing this as well, keep the data stored on the older systems and just lower the cost of personnel and maintenance and all the things that are associated with that to as much as you possibly can. Use this new technology as a bridge, and then every year start taking big hunks of this technology and moving it to the new platform. And the ones that embrace that and realize that you can't get everything that you want at the exact same time that you want it, you have to really think through a plan. I see massive amounts of innovation happening, and the technology gets better every year, kind of like what I talked about this morning. It's going to get better each and every year, new ideas, new skills, but you got to get on the journey. Sitting back and lamenting about it, I can guarantee you, you're going to fall behind.
What's interesting, Mike, is that applies basically to every industry. It's as relevant for everyone sitting in this room as it is for everyone on the stage. Coming back to space in particular, what are the new opportunities that open up as space travel becomes not just possible, but more possible and even predictable?
If you're just...
That's for everyone.
Okay.
But Scott,
so,
starts off.
I think it's... At first I was a little skeptical when NASA said, hey, we're going to give these companies like SpaceX, you know, startup money, money to do things in a different way. And I was a little skeptical on how well this was going to work out because, you know, NASA historically, you know, bureaucracy. We don't do things in that manner. We have, you know, a huge system that takes too long to make decisions, but we're very safe. We're very risk averse and very safety conscious. But I was hopeful that this was going to work. And you know, with SpaceX, when Elon's, as an example, said, "I'm going to land that first stage on a barge, and then I'll land, and I'm going to reuse it," I said, "That guy is out of his mind. There is no way he's going to do that." And I was wrong. And then Elon came up with his Mars plan. And now what I would say is, it's very ambitious, his plan. I wouldn't say he's out of his mind. Recently I did something with Jeff Bezos, and someone asked him the question. He said, when do you expect to turn a profit on your space program? He said, a profit? He's like, I'm thinking 100 years from now. I'm thinking 100 years down the road when, you know, we can move manufacturing to low Earth orbit. And the way we need to do that is we need to make it cheap. So I'm encouraged by, you know, this new idea where we have private companies taking over low Earth orbit, whether it's getting astronauts or payloads there, you know, developing new technologies that, you know, are stuff that, you know, governments used to do. And then hopefully that'll give the opportunity for NASA to someday, you know, leave low Earth orbit again and go to Mars.
You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. I'm really troubled by that. We seem to be trying to get excited. First of all, the only thing that's being done, the only ones that are taking risks, and they do their best work with their own money. You know, the work that Elon Musk, I mean, he developed a rocket and flew payloads to orbit with his own money. And that is just unbelievable. The thing that I'm troubled by is I just met someone that wants to have a career as an astronaut. Back in the 60s, we went from nothing to low Earth orbit real quick. And we did Gemini in 1965, and there were 2 people in a cramped capsule, not too much different than Soyuz.
And
it went only to one place. We, in a handful of years later, went to the moon, sent multiple teams to the moon and explored, and then we backed off. And everything that's going on right now, Elon Musk's Dragon, Boeing's new space capsule, this whole thing, they're going to the same place.
Okay, but
everybody's going to low Earth orbit.
Put it in that a second.
You got some great pictures, but my God, what have we done? What have we done in the 40 years or 45 years when we proved you can go to the moon quickly?
Okay.
Why in the hell have we done nothing for 40 years?
Well, I'll explain one reason. There's 2 reasons. One is we change administrations all the time.
Oh, yeah, blame it on the government.
Scott's turn.
No, you know, it's
one reason.
It's the government. It's the fact that we have this huge bureaucracy that is the federal government and NASA. That is, you know, it takes a group of people to make a decision. We can't, you know, we're like I said, we're risk averse. We're not willing to.
And that second reason?
Excuse me?
You said there were 2 reasons that you.
Well, the other reason is every time we get a new administration and a new, you know, the political dynamic shift, we cancel the program we're working on and we start something new and some new idea, and we never get to finish anything we're working on.
So I want to stop us with that thought and think then, given that this is our context, we are looking to the future. We're thinking about the people that we're bringing up, the people who are going to work in that government, the people who are going to be entrepreneurs of the future. What do we want to make sure that they have in terms of skills? Who are these people and how do we train them? And that question I want to pose first to Natalie and Mike, since you guys just got your turn.
I was actually just going to follow on those thoughts, saying that I think the bigger picture in this is how do we inspire the next generation? How do we inspire young people to be big dreamers, to dare to achieve the impossible, and to keep pushing in the face of people telling them that they're crazy or that this isn't possible. And I think we often think of explorers as people that travel to space or travel to remote places, but I think the world needs more everyday explorers, people who are curious about what is in our own backyards, who are able to think intelligently about the world we live in, who are able to validate information that's presented to us and think critically. And I think once you start generating and cultivating a society of everyday explorers, that's how you're going to build resilient and innovative communities who will dare to achieve the impossible.
Wait, turn.
When I'm listening to all these great people talk about innovation and dreaming big, I think when you have these big, lofty, hard-to-do goals, it inspires the level of creativity that you need. And I'm much more optimistic as I see new ideas coming into our environment. And when I think of skills, most importantly, our technological envelope has gotten much, much bigger. You know, there used to be, like when I graduated from college, you were either an engineer or you were not. When you think about how we build systems today, we have to pull the humanities in. If you're playing with artificial intelligence, you can't get through your first primer on artificial intelligence without being forced to go back to the 14th and 15th century philosophers as they were trying to teach humanity how to think. And as we start to try to think how to teach machines to think, those algorithms and those lessons are bringing people into technology. Some of the best people in artificial intelligence have nothing to do with technology. They come out of philosophy, they come out of the classics. That's bringing people into our industry, and that creativity is going to spur an incredible amount of fellowship, collaboration. The other thing that I've noticed is the interpersonal skills that are required as you come through university. Most of the universities are really forcing this collaboration effect where you're not being graded solely on how smart you are at taking a test. You're being graded on how well you work with another group. And as we see young engineers coming into our company, I'm just astonished at how quickly they want to work with other people, how they want to engage with other people. They care about the work environment and how easy it is to get things done. To your point on NASA, I'm not sure what it's like to work there, but in a big company like CA, we think about that all the time. How do we make things easier to get things done? Push the decision making down to the person that has the most amount of knowledge to make that decision. Put a few guardrails in there so they don't kill the company along the way, but give them a chance to make a decision and understand both the power, the fear, the responsibility of making key decisions. So I'm pretty pumped up about the future, and I love the space exploration because I do think that brings broader thinking into all of our environments.
Yeah, and on that note, Mike, we're wrapping up, and I want to ask you the final question, which is, here we are at CA World. Why are we talking about space here?
Well, I think it's a way for all of us to start thinking less about ourselves and something a lot broader. How much broader can you get when you look up in the sky and you see the stars? And you think of all the great engineers and all the great systems people and all the folks that helped Scott get to the to the space station. Allowed Burt to have a dream of building great rocket ships, and of course having Natalie have a dream of actually doing something more meaningful off of the Earth. And when I started thinking about CA World and what I wanted all of us to think about, I don't want us to think about what we do all day, every day. I really believe that most of us are getting out of optimizing our companies. I think that's yesterday's news. Technology optimizes things. Who cares? Yeah, you go do it, it's a commodity. Make it happen. How do you make your company better? You gotta dream bigger, you gotta do more, you have to think outside the box. And these folks, I'm very impressed with how outside the box they think. I'm just really honored to be in their presence.
So Burt, Natalie, Scott, Mike, that was a terrific panel. Thank you so much for your insights and a great conversation. And thank you guys for your attention this morning.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the exhibition center is now open. As you exit, please follow the directional signs